So if you're at this point, then you've completed phase 1 of your ISU, and your teacher has taken a look at it and made some comments, formative comments based on what you submitted. Meaning they made comments based on the objectives, the description of your game. If you have very few problems and just small things, then you're good to go on this phase. You can go to phase 2 and you can complete the project. If you have a number of different problems, then you should be going back and adjusting phase 1 and getting it reapproved by your teacher before you move on. Because if your objective wasn't approved the first time around, it's not going to be approved the second time around, which means you're just going to have to resubmit it again anyway in a much more complex way. So get it done at the easy step first and then move on. So that being said, here we are on to phase 2. Phase 2 takes phase 1 and just gives it a ton of detail. We're going to flesh everything out in phase 2. So basically, looking on the screen here, you see that we have the same list of invalid excuses for late assignments. Nothing should be late ever. Get it done. Figure out a way. As I said, we already talked about phase 1, and basically you should be at phase 2 by now if you're actually listening to this document. We do have a bit more terminology that I wanted to discuss. Now we've already went over what an objective is, and remember, it's these significant fundamental programming goals. They were either approved in the previous one or they weren't. The next terminology I want to talk about is something called a milestone. Now, a milestone is a very professional term that's used in almost any work environment that has a schedule to keep. Basically, a milestone is a due date. Right? It's a self-imposed due date. It's a due date you're putting on yourself. And it's like a checkpoint in a video game. You're saying, by this point, I've completed all the stuff above it. Alright? So these are chronological lists. We're gonna be creating a milestone list, and they're chronological from top to bottom, where the bottom is the last date and the top is the first date. And your goal is, by the time you get to the end of the sheet, everything in the whole task or everything in the whole assignment has been complete. So the whole point behind milestones is to help enforce game completion on schedule, which is one of the hardest things you're going to find. Think of a milestone like a giant to-do list. It's made up of little tasks, due dates, and people that are assigned to the task. Each milestone in your project must be made up of at least one of your programming objectives. Now remember, you have 5 programming objectives. However, you're only going to have 3 milestones. So that means a couple of your milestones are probably going to have more than one objective in it. You might have 2-2-1, 1-2-2, 3-1-1, 1-3-1, and so on and so forth. So those are all your possible combinations of numbers of objectives in each milestone. Now, each objective itself should probably be broken down into smaller subtasks. So as you can see on the screen here, I've given a brief little example of a single milestone that's made up of one objective. So here the milestone deadline is December 18th, and the objective deadline for collision detection, complete objective 1, collision detection, by December 17th. And then that one is based on, it's built of these 3 subtasks that are right above it. I know they're subtasks for a number of reasons. First of all, they're indented. Shows the ownership. Second of all, I'm clearly labeling it. Objective 1 subtask. This is objective 1. So this must be a subtask of objective 1. What is the subtask? Box-to-box collision detection. That's going to be done by December 17th. Point-to-box and circle-to-circle are going to be both done by December 16th. So 16, 16, 17, and since that's the last subtask, that means that the whole objective should match the same date as the subtask objective. And then below that, I have another task that's in my milestone checklist here. You notice that this one has nothing to do with objectives directly, other than the fact that it's testing an integration of objective 1. It is not objective 1 itself. It's just saying, let's just make sure it works with the entire program. But I know it doesn't belong to this objective because it's not above it and it's not indented. Okay? So what we can see here is that we can have other things that are not objective specific in our milestone checklist. So for example, at some point you're probably going to have to build a menu system. And in no way is a menu system going to be one of the objectives of your program. So that means that it still needs to get done, so it should still be put on your to-do list. But that doesn't mean it has to be part of one of the objectives. But it still needs to be part of one of the milestones. The question is, which milestone? When is it the most important to build that type of system? So what I've done on the right here, under the dependent task number column, basically I want to know which tasks, they're all numbered, does that given task depend on. It can't be complete until all the dependent tasks have been completed. So this is the whole complete objective 1. Obviously it can't be complete until all of its subtasks are done, so 1, 2, and 3. The testing and integration of objective 1, it can't be complete until the actual objective is complete, so it depends on objective 4. And then of course milestone 1, which is itself the whole milestone, it can't be complete until objective 5 is done. Notice that I don't put 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. I don't need to, because 5 depends on 4, but 4 depends on 1, 2, and 3. So I don't need to specify them all here. 5 just depends on 4. Okay? Alright, so that's our milestone. Now when you do your project, you'll find a demo on the website, but when you do your project, you're going to have to flesh out all of your milestones. The question is, where do these dates come from? How do you know how long it's going to take you to do something? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in a second, how we get into the next phase. So we'll wait on that one in the next module.